In this video, we're gonna add a washer to the backup camera of the Cybertruck.
A common feature on many luxury items for the last decade has been a washer fluid motor that actually cleans the backup camera of the car. This is something that the Tesla vehicle is missing, but it's even more important on the Cybertruck because I rely on that camera even more than my rearview mirror. On my truck, I've actually limited that mirror altogether, so I need that camera to work, but there's not that function that many other automakers have to clean that off, until now. I have a product today I'm going to show you all the install. I'm going to give you a review of how to put it all in, walk you through step by step. Although it is a lot of work, it's all simple work that you can definitely do, but I'll walk you through step by step how to do it. You're basically taking apart this whole passenger side of the car, at least the plastic part of it. You're going to remove the whole front to get to the motor and start spreading this little tubing across the entire car. You're going to have to remove the fender, the wheel well. There's all kinds of plastic underneath you have to take out. You're going to remove the rear fender as well, rear wheel well, and we're going to disassemble the entire tailgate, where eventually we're going to mount this little ticket right here. That's going to wash our fluid when we're using washer fluid on our front windshield. You're going to like this. Stay with me. You can do it.
This kit's going to come with the rubber tubing to stretch front to back. It's going to come with a little check valve, a little T-splitter, the actual nozzle to spray the fluid, as well as a little jig to make sure you drill the hole in the correct spot.
As I'm disassembling the frunk, here's a list of things you're going to need to accomplish this drill.
Although I won't do a step-by-step tutorial on how to remove the frunk, you can catch that video that I have at the end of this one. Make sure you have a drill, some nice cobalt bits, sockets, the clear view kit, a fish tape, some WD-40, rivet removal tool, marker, and some tape.
Next, I'll unsnap these fenders. They're just pushed in with little plastic clips, so they do just pull out. Be careful, your front end does have the camera with a little wire we're gonna have to disconnect.
It just pulls straight out. Make sure you're careful, undo that cord, not much to it. Once you got that out, you go to the rear and pull that one straight out as well.
Next, we have to remove the plastic wheel well from the truck so we can rub that tubing in between. You're just going to systematically go one by one, popping all these rivets out.
This should be minimal effort if you're doing it correctly.
If you're not familiar with vehicle rivets, they all basically look like this. They come with two parts. This first part goes into the second part. This goes through a hole. And as this part of the rivet goes through, it expands the outer portion of this to hold it inside. So when you're releasing these, you're just pulling the center portion out from underneath the other portion, like so.
There's about 10 rivets per wheel well.
Next, we're going to remove this little plastic shell, at least enough of it to kind of flip it up, which I believe it's 8 more 10mm sockets along the bottom side. The next thing that's left to do is to drill the hole that the actual sprayer nozzle is going to come out of. And Clearview actually gives you a couple little templates where I'll show you how to line these up to make sure you drill the hole in the exact right spot.
The first little jig that looks kind of like a home plate has a little line on it. I'm taping it with the line out with pre-torn off tape. The second one is the one that says Cybertruck. Line up the two intersecting T's there, and then grab a little marker and color in the hole to show you where to start drilling.
Next, I'm going to be drilling the hole into the stainless of the truck. Now, it is important to note, it's a pretty thick stainless, so you are going to need some good bits. They almost pretty much need to be cobalt bits here. The brand doesn't necessarily matter, but in a way it kind of does. Now, you're never going to get through this like a wood bit or even like those black metal bits. It needs to be probably something like cobalt, or you're going to be working on it for hours. Now, the bit you're actually going to use to get through the size of the nozzle is a 5/16, but you're going to save yourself a lot of time and energy if you step it up. Like, for example, I'm going to start with a much smaller bit. Like, I might start with like a 5/32, something like that, my pilot hole started, and then I'll step up to something maybe a little bit closer to like 7/32, somewhere around there, before I finally finish with that 5/16. So I'm choosing to start with the 5/32 bit. If you do have a drill, make sure you're on the drill setting. It's going to help you a lot. And I'm going to do it on the high speed. Then I'm going to have some WD-40 to lubricate it. Now, obviously, cutting oil would be better if you have it, but if you're like me and you just don't have cutting oil laying around your garage, WD-40 will work fine. You can't really over lubricate. What you're going to do by putting this on is you're going to help keep it cool and help keep your bit sharp. If you start drilling into this really hardened, thick stainless steel without the right lubricant, you're going to dull your bit, and you're going to kind of like polish the ends and make it nearly impossible to get through. Let the bit do its work.
If you blink, you're going to miss how quickly I made it through with that first bit, that fast. This was not fast forwarded, neither was the second bit here fast forwarded. It's trying to show you how quick this can actually work if you have a good cobalt drill bit.
Next, I'm going with that final bit, which is that 5/16. And in case you're wondering why 5/16, is it lines up just perfect to where it's big enough to where the threads are going to go through, but not so big that the washer's not going to hold it on the outside, but it doesn't just pull through.
Again, I'm not going to fast forward this section at all. It takes just a little bit longer from the first and a little bit longer than the second. You can still see in a matter of under 10 seconds, I'm able to drill through with the 5/16 bit.
It's really that simple. That's how long it takes. If it takes you much longer than that, then probably your bits aren't good. Oil it, use good bits. Good bits are always worth their time. Don't use that wood bit. Use the cobalt. It'll say right on the box what kind of metals you can cut through with it.
Here's a quick look at what the hole will look like once your light bar is popped out.
Next, I'm going to disassemble the tailgate.
There's two 8mm bolts on each side, as well as a Torx or Allen on each support.
Next, I'm going to pop off this little plastic shell on the top lip of the tailgate. This one, you're going to try to pry up and then kind of out a little bit, lifting the tailgate up and then kind of pushing it out.
This again should be simple and fairly effortless.
We're going to end up pulling out several different bolts from the tailgate, so it's going to help to make a little bit of space for yourself by separating this plastic from the bed itself. The more space you can give yourself, the better.
After I pulled the plastic loose, I just used this little box that I had as like a wedge to hold it open while I unscrewed all these little individual bolts with an Allen wrench.
There's really two steps on this whole process that are kind of a pain in the neck. The first is getting this tail light out. The second is fishing the hose into here. We'll get that in a second, but first get this out. It can be really complicated if you let it, but actually it's kind of simple, and really the best advice I can give you is I just kind of like rattle it out until it actually finally falls down.
So this is actually a perfect example where it didn't fall for me right away. I had to kind of shake one side and shake the other to where eventually it did fall out in my hands.
So the light bar itself is held on by a couple different wires. I thought it was easiest to leave them in. Now, if you want to take the time to go ahead and pull them all out, that's up to you. That's totally fine. Whether you are or not, it's going to be important to have something sitting here that will help hold it while you either snap it out of the harness or hold it while you just work on everything else. I chose to leave it in because that worked best for me. Next, we're going to put in that little nozzle. So if you can see here, it's going to look something like this. Then we're going to have a white plastic nut, looks like this. This is going to go in the truck, then this little white nut is going to slip in here from the backside, and this is going to tighten this down on and pinch the stainless steel in between the nozzle and the white nut. So now that I have everything kind of torn apart, now I'm going to take this little hose and fish it all the way through. The next complicated part, really the only one of two complicated parts in this whole thing, is finding a way to get the hose from where the camera's going to be at in through the tailgate into that back wheel well. And it's complicated for a few reasons, main which it's just hard to grab inside and out. Now, if you could totally remove this plastic cover, it would be easier, but I don't really have the tool that I need to get a small Torx bit into behind to take it off. If you can figure out a way, which I'll show you in a second here, to get this off, it might be easier, but you can definitely do it without it. If you're like me, you're gonna be tempted to try to run the hose in through here. You're gonna be like, oh, that's so much easier. Trust me, I tried, it's not possible. This plastic fits way too tight to the stainless and you're gonna kink the hose and fluid has to pass through it, so that's no good. So you will have to take that path, the same path that wire takes, through the back, through the hole, through all the way back, through the back of the tailgate, under the wheel well. You can use anything you want. I used a combination of just pushing the hose, my fish tape that I had, and some needle nose pliers to help kind of grab it on the back and pull it out. I tried going this way and I was really struggling. It actually worked easier for me to get it through the back, and I actually got some needle nose, came down and pinched it and kind of pulled it out and then fed it through backwards. You can try a couple different ways, but whatever way you try this first, just in case you can go both ways. Once you get through the tailgate, the rest is a piece of cake. This is where you're going to use the fish tape I previously talked to you about. You're going to use this to slide the wire in between cavities you can't quite reach. I just use a little bit of electrical tape to kind of tape it there. Don't go crazy, just enough where it doesn't come loose as you're fishing it through. You'll see.
So I taped the hose to the edge of the fish tape, and I wedged this through from the back corner all the way to the front wheel well. You can see here there's a little cloth sheathed wire that's running from the back of the truck in through the tailgate to give it power. The hose is going to have to follow that same path. Now, once I had it through, I kind of used the needle nose to pull it up, and then I used a combination of the fish tape, needle nose, and just my fingers to fish it through along those wires into the back of the tailgate. I don't know if there's really a right way or wrong way. It's just however you can manage to pull it through. It just has to follow the same path of those wires. Just make sure you leave enough length that this can now run all the way the length of the bed to where you can actually hook onto the sprayer.
Okay, so the last thing you're going to do before you connect this hose to the new little nozzle in the back of your car is you're going to have to put in this check valve. Again, this comes in the clear view set. There is an arrow on this. I'll show you up close here. It's important that that arrow face the direction that the fluid is going to be flowing. So the fluid is flowing, again, to the camera, so my arrow is going to go that way. Again, this barb fitting, just going to push right in, like so. Then you're going to take a little piece of hose. You're going to cut off a little piece. I recommend keeping this piece long enough where it gives you flexibility, but not so long you want any extra in between. Again, this is just a hose from the other end. You're going to cut yourself off a little piece, and insert this onto the other end of the little white check valve. Then the other end of this hose is actually going to hook onto the nozzle on the back of the truck.
I actually wanted to make sure I got this part pretty tight. This next part is actually really easy. You're just going to fish the wire over the wheel well, then you're going to slide it back in underneath this plastic. I put the tubing behind the little divot where the socket was that I removed. That seemed to work really well. Did this all the way down. until I could pass it seamlessly to the front and go over that wheel well. From there, I just found a way to pass it through the opening where I could push it through with my left hand, almost grab it with my right to pull it through. You end up with an extra couple feet.
So this is your little pump right here that's going to pump fluid into your wiper to give you the washer fluid there. So we're going to tap right into this. You can look, as you can see here, this little hose here is what's going to wrap all the way to your wiper. So I'm just going to tap right into this. I'm going to cut here, and that's where I'm going to put in the barbed T.
So go ahead and cut that hose low enough so you can still get it into the clasp. You're going to insert that little T left and right. It's going to connect it how it was. And then the extended portion of the T is where the valve running to the back of the truck is going to clip on. Then go ahead and snap it all back into place.
I'm going to start putting everything back together. Before I do that, I want to go ahead and make sure it works. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the fluid on the back. I'm going to set the camera record. And I'm going to come back out and find out with you guys if it actually works or not.
Test in 3, 2, 1. Looks like it works. So from here, it's a matter of just putting it all back together. I'm going to slide the light bar back into place, being careful not to pinch any of the wires, and then go ahead and just put all those bolts in one by one. Now, you can use a drill, but I felt like I had a better feel putting these all back in manually with the Allen wrench. Again, it's 8 bolts on the side, 2 of the 8mm on each end, and then the Allen wrench puts in the actual wire support on each side as well. The 8mm, as you can see, I did use the wrench, put those in. Then you'll grab the edge of the tailgate, go ahead and snap that back into place, making sure it's clipped in really good everywhere. And then from there, you can see, just go ahead and snap the fender back on. Go ahead and snap the front one on, making sure you hook that camera up. Then I'm replacing that frunk shell, making sure I connect that wire for the little push button open. Put in all your little plastic hold downs, as well as these 6 10mm bolts back down, fastening that back into place. You can see here, I used the drill for all of these as well. Put the 2 little plastic bolt covers onto the base of the frunk, grab this little piece of trim, snap these 5 rivets back in.
All right, here's the complete test with everything put back together. As you can see, definitely works. The only problem is here, and stick with me, and this is why you want to subscribe to the channel, is I have a lot of stuff running down the back of the truck. I'm going to try to find out a way in another video where I can catch this with a funnel and run it down. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it.